This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad and live today. Facial expressions can speak volumes. As many of you know, I recently had a hip replacement. My left hip had been giving me a hard time for quite a while, so I initially asked my doctor to take a look at it. He ordered an x-ray for me, and he wanted me to meet with a specialist who would then review the findings with me and go over any recommendations that they had. So I had the x-ray, and then the specialist came into the room and pulled it up on the computer screen. She looked at it intently for a minute, then she turned and she looked at me, and when she did, her face told me everything I needed to know. Her eyes were as big as saucers. She was in shock and disbelief at what she was looking at. She hadn't said a word to me when I made the comment, "Wow, is it that bad, huh?" Her face had spilled the beans and told me everything that I needed to know. No amount of physical therapy or shots were going to cure my ailment. I would need to go under the knife. What story does your face tell about you? When we look at people, we can tell when they are joyous and when they cannot contain their excitement over some news that they want to share. We know when someone's day is off to a rough start and when stress is overwhelming an individual. We know when a person is locked in and focused, determined to accomplish a task. We know when happiness has wrapped itself around an individual as their delight is written on that smile that is extending from ear to ear. Now, some people, they have perfected the poker face, that blank stare that doesn't reveal what's going on inside of one's heart or mind or soul. But for the most part, our faces are that portal to understanding true feelings as they become a way to connect with another individual, whether that be a family member, neighbor, friend, or even stranger. Today is Transfiguration Sunday, the day when Jesus' appearance was changed right before his disciples' eyes. It all begins when Jesus, in need of some time alone in prayer, decides to go up on a mountain to get away from all the pressures of his ministry. Now, as he's leaving his campsite, he stops and he calls out to Peter and James and John and asks them if they would like to go with him. Having nothing better to do, they decide to go, and the four of them set off up the mountain for a time of meditation. After they reach the top, Jesus begins to pray. And while he's deep in prayer, we read that the appearance of his face changed and his clothes became dazzling white. Now that must have been something else. What a totally unexpected event that was taking place. Peter, James, and John thought they were just going up the mountain for a little R&R to take a break from all the ministry work they'd been dealing with. I mean, the preaching, the teaching, the healing. They'd been working so hard at serving other people's needs that they just assumed that this was a little time off for themselves. Little do they expect that their siesta would be interrupted by something so amazing and incredible. Now, as I hear the story, the detail that I tend to be drawn to is Jesus' face. Gospel writer Luke says the appearance of his face changed. Now, what exactly does that mean? I mean, how did it change? From what to what? And maybe better yet, why did it change? What was the story that Jesus' face was telling these three eyewitnesses? Now, if we stick solely to the Gospel of Luke, we won't get anywhere in answering the questions that are intriguing me the most. But if we turn to Gospel writer Matthew, he adds a little bit of information that points us in the right direction. Matthew says that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. The clothes became dazzling white, but that face, oh, his face, it shone like the sun. I mean, what a sight that must have been to see. Throughout the Bible, there are numerous references to darkness and light. In the book of Genesis, we read that in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw that light, and it was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. Isaiah 9:2 says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. Psalm 18:28 says, "It is you who light my lamp. The Lord my God lights up my darkness." And in the New Testament, Gospel writer John says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it," as he's referring to Jesus. Jesus himself even then says that I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now, we could keep going on and on and on, but we seem to understand the significance of light. In that battle between darkness and light, light always prevails. When it comes to good versus bad or God versus the devil, we know that God triumphs every single time. So when we read that Jesus' face shone like the sun, that tells me exactly where Jesus is aligned. He is aligned with God, for he is God's only Son, the light that comes to shatter the darkness, the light to lead us down paths of righteousness and into a loving relationship with our God. There's no question whatsoever. It is written all over Jesus' face. This isn't just a glow that seems to be radiating from Jesus. This is light like the sun. You see, God is present in this mountaintop moment. He's making his mark, and he is telling the disciples and the world that this light, his light, Jesus Christ, will prevail over the dark blanket of sin and death that has enveloped humanity. It turns out that the Transfiguration is quite literally the dawn of a new day. As was stated earlier, facial expressions can speak volumes. Maybe this is that time that we make the decision to put on the face of Jesus when we go out into the world. As people look at us, make it so that they can't help but see God's grace, mercy, and peace because we have been filled with the light of God, and we excitedly are ready to be a transforming agent in someone else's life. God's glory is apparent in all that we say and in all that we do. For we have been called through our baptisms to be God's hands and feet in this world, sharing his forgiveness and love with everyone. As it states in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." Go ahead and let your face tell the story of Jesus and his love. Amen. Remember as you go about your day that yesterday is gone. Tomorrow does not yet belong to you. So why not live today, knowing that you never walk alone? We will see y'all next week. Later.